You know, I think Duke certainly exposed our being on the edge with our transition defense. The points they got, and again, the more talented team, the bigger the stage, the little things can get exposed. And I thought we weren't near as sharp as we needed to be against them. And really, that's just the way it is from here on out. Because when you get to the midway point in conference play or wherever it is, it seems like teams improve. You either you kind of get left behind or you improve and you stay with it. And I felt like they exposed that for us. There's certain things that we have to be great at or close to excellent at, and that's one of them. So seeing that from that game and just you know, a few areas that they took advantage of enlightened us, or maybe made it gave it a little more strength to the message that we've been talking about.
Isabel.
When Justin's going through, you know, his shooting percentages dipped a little bit. I mean, do you talk to him about that, and you know, what do you sort of see happening there?
No, the biggest thing that I thought took place on Saturday at North Carolina, I'm sorry, on Monday at North Carolina, is, I mentioned it after the game, is our guys played for one another. We chart quality shots that we take, individuals as a team we get, and then maybe either forces or not great shots. And I thought, boy, the numbers were the best they had been against Carolina than they have in a long time against other teams, whereas the Duke game I thought we forced. Sometimes that has to do with the late in the shot clock or certain situations, but we take that into account. And so the thing I challenge guys on, if they're missing a few shots or struggling a little bit, is just keep taking good shots, the right kind of shots. Don't force and press to try to get out of a slump, but don't pass up a rhythm shot if you're not comfortable. You got to shoot the right shots. That's why I was happy to see London step up and be a little more assertive and take shots that were there. And, you know, he missed his first 2 or 3 shots, but I even thought that was important that he kept shooting and taking those. And then as the game wore on, he was balanced with some drives, some rhythm catch and shoot shots. So regarding your specific question, it's really all about the quality of the shot. Let it come, but take it when it's there, and kind of get it out of the offense. And I thought, again, Justin had a real good game, 7 assists, pointed that out, where he did share the ball, and I thought our team was looking to make the extra pass and not being too anxious, but not being too passive as well.
So did you feel like he was taking, I guess, good shots when he was in a little bit of a slump?
No, sometimes he was, sometimes he wasn't, like all of our guys. I mean, there's always – that's a fine line, because you want, as I've said before, your guys to be aggressive, your scorers to be aggressive and take the good shots but not force. But some of those he got himself in trouble, and those are obvious, and he knows that. But that's really important for our team, that guys continue to be assertive but take the right kind of shots out of the offense, move the ball, and there'll be plenty of opportunities. And I think that he had a great feel for that, as almost all the guys did. You know, Malcolm and Justin are 2 of our more aggressive offensive players, rightly so, but there still is responsibility within that.
Coach, you saw some. Oh, sorry.
We'll get to you, I promise.
Is that one of the assets of this team, Tony? Is the ability almost for it to surprise on certain nights? Justin 7 assists the other night, you mentioned. That's 3 more than he's had in any game. London takes more shots in a regulation game than he had this season. Some nights Darian will go out and shoot elbow jumpers when he hasn't before. It's almost like you can surprise people who watch you and even opponents.
Yeah, and sometimes the coaches too, yourself. So no, I think that has been a key. One of you guys brought that up. Is it's been earlier in the year. It just seems like different guys at different times, even doing different things, you know, within themselves. Justin can pass, London can shoot. It's not like you know, we've got certain guys out there shooting threes or bringing the ball up without a position. But absolutely, I think the experience, we've talked about the depth, but then getting lifts at the most opportune times for us when we've needed them up to this point. Not every time, but, you know, Darian really established himself against Notre Dame offensively when we needed some key buckets. And then, like you just mentioned, those things. I think that's a real important aspect for a team to continue to play at a high level, is you can't just be one-dimensional. There has to be balance. You know, you looked at that stat sheet against North Carolina, and it was really good in terms of assists, turnovers, the balanced scoring, inside, outside, and that's what you aspire to, certainly. And I think it showed in that game, but it has been a strength, what you mentioned.
Tony, Mariel has not been as productive recently as he was early in the year. Is this a case of opponents having more tape on him, or is this just one of those lulls that first-year guys go through?
Yeah, hard to say. You know, he hasn't probably been playing quite as many minutes to play his way out of that. But you know, it's for these first-year guys. There's as I mentioned before, the intensity, the competition. It's creeping up. You're in conference play, and teams are improving, and so you know there is a little adjustment that you got to keep making. And you know, teams do watch you. There's not as many surprises, so all that stuff might play into it. But he's certainly done some wonderful things for us, and again, we're going to need him. And hopefully, you know, like we just talked about, he'll be one of those guys at Maryland, different games where he just really makes some key plays. So I certainly believe in him and I think he has a bright future. But you know, there's always the ebb and flow of being younger and inexperienced, and then figuring it out in practice and going to work. And so hopefully we'll get some more lifts from him.
Wanted to ask you about the different brands of basketballs. I know you guys use the Nikes, but it can be different on the road. It's different in the tournament, et cetera. Do you guys, as a shooter, is that something that can be different, a field thing? What do you coach your guys on that? And do you practice with different kinds leading into different games?
You gonna ask me about the inflation of the ball, or are you talking about just the brand of the ball, or what are we going here? No, absolutely. You know, some teams are Adidas schools, Nike schools. You've got, I remember at Wisconsin for Coach Ryan, we were a Sterling. He's the only team in the country that used the Sterling basketball. You know, I'm trying to think what other balls. There's the Rock we've played with. There's the, there's not a Reebok ball. It's the Under Armour ball, Spalding, Wilson. There's another one I'm missing out there. But no, I pay attention to all those little things, certainly. And, yeah, some balls have a different feel. The NBA ball, it's a leather ball. You know, guys aren't used to it. Everything's synthetic now, and they can grip it. And that, I love that leather ball because it just comes out of your hand after a while. But, yeah, you try to get guys used to shooting with the ball, and because they've played a lot, they're used to it. But, yeah, we use certainly different balls. And then a lot of it has to do with surroundings, different arenas, all that stuff. I think it comes into play. But, yeah, I think you want to have a good feel, and that's why shoot-arounds are important, and getting comfortable with the ball, the inflation, and all those things.
Do you have like a big stock of them here, or do you wait until you're on the road?
No, we always, you know, we use balls that we know what we're going to play with.
Louisville didn't press much last night because of Miami and how perimeter-oriented they are, but presuming they'll press you, is it an advantage, even though it was in December, to having played a team like VCU, Louisville, bigger, maybe a little better athlete, but still having seen that, does that help in your preparation?
Well, I mean, I think you always go back to teams that you've played against that do similar things, and you know, watching Louisville, they're exceptional defensively. Their scheme is unique. They mix it up, and Coach Pitino, it's impressive. Like they win with their defense a lot, and then they have certainly some playmakers and do things offensively, but they challenge you to take care of the ball when they're pressing, and then when they're not, going against their half court, you know, man-to-man zone matchup. They do a lot of different things. So very impressed, and you know, I think you'll have to really be ready. And again, if they come after you with the press like they do, they have different kinds. You've got to take care of the ball, and you have to use certainly attacks that you've used in the past, and you know, look for things that are there and just be ready. But it's as good of a defensive team as I've seen in quite a while.
Coach, first of all, congratulations on the 20 wins. That used to be a big deal, but you've set the bar a lot higher now.
Always a big deal.
But I was just going to ask you, obviously Duke played some 2-3 zone. You're going to see it against Syracuse. You may see it against some other teams. The one thought that comes to mind, maybe the tad bit of disappointment this year might be Evan Nolte and his shooting percentage, following up on some of these shooting questions. Is there anything in particular you've tried to help him with to get his confidence back as he goes out on the floor?
Well, again, Evan hasn't lately gotten you know, a lot of minutes, and it's hard when you're you know, you're a shooter, you rely on certain things, and Evan's much more than a shooter. His smarts, you know, the VCU game, other games, he's really given us good lifts. Notre Dame, his defensive prowess, BC. But when you shoot, it's hard when you play in short stints to get a rhythm. So I think, you know, I look at that, but he's got to keep working at it in practice and just keep, you know, having confidence, and that's hard when you're in those spots. But as we just talked about, I think there will be a time when he's called upon, and he just, even if they're short minutes here and there, it's been valuable, and there'll be some times when maybe it'll be stretches of longer minutes. So I know he obviously wants to shoot it a little better. I don't even know his percentages because I don't get too caught up in that because of how little bit he's playing. It's hard to judge it, but I just try to watch him in practice. I always look at the quality of the miss. That's a big thing to me. Are you missing well? Is it online? Is it feeling good? Is it got good arc? And then guys certainly got to work their kinks out. And then, with Evan, you saw what he did for us last year in the NCAA tournament. He's capable at any time to hit a 3 or 2 or get a few going, and that certainly can change things. And, yeah, you want another guy who can stretch it, who understands the game, who has experience. And, like I said, the hardest thing for a coach is to not play guys that are desperately want to play and be a part of it. And just with all those guys, you just got to stay patient and bide his time, and hopefully there'll be an opportunity for him because that could come into play with the ability to stretch it.
Tony, do you have any background with Patino? And since you guys are going to be playing him twice every year now, would you like to see it develop into a sort of an instant rivalry like Duke and Syracuse did last year?
I do have a background. We're both Italian, so I guess that goes back a ways, right? But I don't. The thing that I always, when I've seen him sometimes recruiting in the summer, just the fact that his son coaches, and I think that bond of, I talked to him about working for my father, and now his son's out there, and there's a bond, a father-son coaching experience there. So we've talked about that. Obviously, the quality of his program, the excellence of what he's done as a coach, and even listening to Billy Donovan talk about him when I was Billy's assistant in the USA 19 team, just how good he is, watching it from afar is impressive. They're a great team, and like I said, we'll have to play against them. As far as the rivalry stuff, it seems like every game you play in the ACC feels like a rivalry when you're trying to get after it. But, obviously with Maryland going out and them becoming our natural team, we're playing twice, why not? I think when a team has that kind of reputation and a Hall of Fame coach, whoever they play, it's always a huge game. And it's like that when Duke and Carolina, the big name universities, basketball programs, it just is like that. People can feel it when they come in, and certainly they'll be one of those.
I cringe to ask this question, but Malcolm told us before the season that he was coming back next year. Have you had any conversations with Justin about that, or talk about staying grounded? And
Yeah, no, I haven't. That's Doug, with my experience of having played, was fortunate enough to have a brief career in the NBA and all that. That stuff all takes care of itself after. There's so much ground to be covered for all these guys that are potential picks or draftable. It's how you finish, it's how you play in workouts, it's all those things, decisions. There's undergraduate advisory boards that take the coach out and take the representation out, or people that just give honest appraisals for players, where their draft status is, and it's always up to the young man and the family. But I think by busying your mind with that now, or worrying about that if you're a player, that's really a distraction. Now, not to say, I remember my senior year, I'm like, well, I hope I'm playing well enough, so I didn't sit there and look at mock drafts or anything like that, because those are not as reliable as people think. But of course, it's like anything. You have an aspiration and a dream, and if the timing's right, that's the stuff you deal with, but at the proper time. If you get ahead of that thing, you're chasing after the wind. I think that'd be a big mistake, and I think that's what I like about our guys, and I can only know what I see, is they're committed to being as good as they can here and enjoying it, because this is a different experience. Once you step in to the professional ranks, or once you leave that, it changes. And there's great things about it, but this is unique, and my advice to all those guys is make the most of it while you're here, enjoy it, and when the time's right for that stuff, the right people will be involved for sound decision making. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think, but yeah, if you want, I'm sorry, I could answer that. And no, there, how's that?
Three questions. I think Isabel and then David and then Rocky.
You talked about your transition defense earlier.
Yep.
How do you feel about your perimeter defense to this point?
At times it's been good. At times, there's so much that goes into that. There's such quickness. These two guards, the quickness of Louisville's guards and their explosiveness, similar to to Quinn Cook, Tyus Jones, Marcus Page, these elite quick guards that can, we call them, whatever, triple threat, or they can shoot the three, they can beat you off the dribble, they have pull-ups, and they're real explosive. They put great pressure on you, so your stance is so important, but your help, then you always bring in, it's going to be a lot of ball screens, so you got to be able to play good ball screen defense. So when we've been good, it's been significant, but there's times where people have gotten in the paint and exploited us. Hopefully we use our size and our positioning, but this will be a challenge of the highest order. I talked about how good their defense is, but these two guards are very aggressive, and they can go on runs, and you see it. They got two of the better mid-range or pull-up jumpers, pull-up jump shot shooters I've seen, and so it will be tested. And I think hopefully our guys will embrace that challenge, because they'll have to, and they'll have to be ready, because if you're a little off, they're in there, and then they got some guys coming on the glass that are pretty accomplished.
You've coached teams that, for lack of better description, you had to drag across the finish line to get into the NCAA tournament, a so-called bubble team. Last season in this, you're sitting here at 21, you're going to the NCAA tournament. Does that afford you as a coach a little more flexibility, perhaps, to experiment with something that you might not experiment with if you had no margin for error, be it a lineup change, be it a set on offense, anything like that? Or do you just coach the same?
Absolutely. I don't. What you're saying, I don't even look at it that way. You've got your non-conference, you've got your preseason, you've got your conference, and you're fighting to position yourself to the best place possible. If you can win a championship, if you can just get in the best spot and improve your team and keep developing it. And then there's postseason play, postseason conference tournament, and if you're fortunate enough to get into postseason NCAA tournament NIT, and then you address it at that time. But you're always trying to strengthen yourself and get better. But to assume any of that stuff or say, well, that's a big mistake. This is about the moment. And I think if you, again, start thinking ahead about, well, I wonder what my draft status is, or I wonder what seed we're going to be, or I wonder if we're going to get in. I just think that's a mistake. As I said, it's for us, and I'm not suggesting you're saying we should, but it doesn't work like that for me, and it doesn't work like that for our guys. If it starts getting that way, it's tough. Now maybe when you're a game or two at the end of the year and you start thinking and wondering about stuff, but we're midway through the ACC season. We got one of the best defensive teams I've seen coming in here. That's very good. One of the best Hall of Fame. Like, revel in that challenge, get as ready as you can, and then we'll go on to the next. That's really the way it works for me at least, and I know our players in our program. That's what we're trying to be on about.
Yeah, Tony, you've faced a lot of good big men these last couple games, and I wanted to get your thoughts on Harrell and kind of how the different kinds of challenges that maybe he poses that the other guys you've played recently maybe did or didn't.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched it all last night, and I saw it when I was, again, an assistant coach on that world championship team. He's developed a little turn and face, or 17, 18-footer. He's even shot some threes, but he shoots it. He's got such long arms and a high release, but dangerous. But the one thing I remember about Montrez is, when the lights turn on, he is one of the fiercest competitors that I've been around. You can see it. He's, I can picture he and Justin, locking horns. They're both so passionate and so charismatic that way. So you'll see it. But he is a warrior between the lines. That's what he's motivated by that. The bigger the game, the bigger the setting, he seems to thrive on that. So that's what impressed me about him. Most guys are competitive this level. That's, as you say, you got to be that way. But he's got another gear in terms of that. His activity, his length, his ability to get his shot if he misses it, his ability to change shots with running the floor, blocking shots. There's a lot of aspects to him. And, I don't know what they list him at size-wise. I don't know if he's 6'8" or 6'9". I'm not even sure. But when you'll see him, the length is so impressive, and the motor behind it and the skills that he's developed make him he's a unique talent that way. So, but you add that competitiveness, and that's what's as good as most in the country.
He was on that team with Toby.
Yes.
So Mike's got some experience.
Yep. Right. So, no, they didn't. No, I was gonna say they roomed together, but he roomed with Jarnell Stokes. Mike did. I remember that. So that team was a pretty good team. There's a lot of talented guys on that team.